A lot of people have been asking me how I manage my Claude Code projects and leverage orchestration. So I thought I'd show a quick demo on my process, how I manage all of my projects. And I am not a technically trained person. I spent most of my career in marketing and then pivoted to AI over the last couple of years and have been learning as I go for the most part. But I spend most of my day working now in Claude Code. I'm also using Codex and Grok. One of the big challenges that I've had is finding a system that fits the way that I think. And I think I've finally landed there. So let me show you how this works. I'm using an open source terminal app called CMUX. And CMUX, I believe, is a fork of TMUX, which is an interface that allows you to have several different sessions open simultaneously. CMUX in particular also allows you to have a browser window or session opened alongside terminal panels. I can double click or open other panels and then size them and arrange this workspace basically however I want. And that's super handy because I can have my workspaces organized by project. So on the left-hand bar are different workspaces that exist inside this one CMUX window. And within each workspace, I can have as many sessions as I want open, whether it's a browser or something that I'm launching in the terminal. Now, another great thing about CMUX is that it has a CLI, meaning that agents themselves can control CMUX. They can create workspaces, open sessions that are visible, and even control and prompt those sessions that are visible. On the right side is a simple Kanban board that I created myself that is very similar to Jira or any of the other big Kanban board solutions out there that allows me to track all of the different items on a per project basis. So if I thumb through my different projects here, you may notice that each one has its own Kanban board with its own tickets. And the most that I do is add a new one. And I can add a screenshot, a description. I can go back and edit these, categorize them, and even assign an owner. So this is the project for Viable Edge, which is my knowledge base as a service product. And I've got a Fable window opened here. And so I'm going to clear this. And I've created an orchestration skill that puts any chat that I launch it in into an orchestration mode. So when I type orchestrate, it's going to do a couple of things. So I'm using Fable Medium, which I found to be very effective in this model. Opus works pretty well too. The first thing it's doing is catching up on the in-flight cards. So the in-flight cards, if I scroll my Kanban board here, are items that are exactly what it sounds like, currently in flight. And the next thing it's doing is loading up a CMUX workspace skill. So this is a skill that basically tells the orchestrator all of the controls that it has over the CMUX workspace. And it's doing some other diligence to make sure that it's not colliding with other projects. You might notice that it renamed the tab up here to Orchestrator, so I can always eyeball the workspace and know which session to go to. Reading the board, there's 281 tickets, which is something that I'm trying to pare down aggressively right now, but that is certainly clogging the context here. And I have a rule where as we approach 50% context, we can hand off to a new orchestration session. And the orchestrator is capable of doing that on its own. So part of that CMUX workspace skill and capability is updating the tab and the status pills. I can eyeball a summary of what's happening in the project at any moment. I can see what's going on without having to click through to different workspaces. These ones indicate that a session is finished and is ready for my input. So I noticed a permissions error there. So it's always a work in progress, right? So we're going to allow that going forward. So for anyone who doesn't know, if you are managing permissions and you notice something gets denied, if you hit /permissions, you can look at what was recently denied and then decide whether you want to include that in the project's allowed permissions moving forward. Okay, so the role is claimed and here's the state. What's proposed next is the spec-C option, which is related to UI work in the onboarding process. There's a decision from me that's blocking a chat reload bug. I'm going to hit tab to just say go ahead and then also fix the chat reload bug. And what we're going to see now is that Fable's not going to do the work. Fable's going to open visible sessions in this workspace and then hand off these items to their own dedicated sessions, and it will also govern the model and the effort level for those items based on what it thinks is the best balance of outcome and efficiency. If we read the feed here, it's reading orchestrator dispatch instructions, which give it all of those guidelines. There's also a lot of instruction around avoiding collision. So each builder or worker will claim a lane and then report back to the orchestrator when it's finished. In many cases, they will create new worktrees, which then get cleaned up after the lane is released. Part of the impetus for me creating this was that I kept dealing with collision issues, and this has pretty much fully alleviated it. You might have noticed it's moving around tickets, and one way that I like to work is if I'm QAing or dog fooding, as I go, what I'll do is I'll just pile up intake tickets here, and the orchestrator will continue to just work through them as I go. So we can see that it's creating a work tree, then gating and committing the dispatch before the builder starts. So once it's through that process, that's when we'll see Fable open a new chat session on its own. And this is probably a preference thing. I like to see the chat sessions. It doesn't need to launch something in terminal. It could launch a headless session and manage it in the background, but I just like to see it. That's just the way my brain works. Okay, so in this case, it actually launched its own subagent because it's a fairly small item that it's working on. I expect that it will launch a new session for the UI update that it's speccing out right now. All right, so it's got 2 decisions for me before we move forward. I've provided my feedback on a couple of decisions. This is all going to be reflected on the board because it's managing all of the cards here. That's this item right here is the card that we're working on. If I open it, you can see that there's a classic Opus wall of text. This is something I want to fix at some point. I didn't write all that. When I leave a ticket, the orchestrator works on it over time. All of that context and information is captured within that ticket. So we have everything, all of the decisions, all of the context that got us there, etc. There it is. So the new session just popped up. Claude will launch it and then prompt it. And just a small little OCD pet peeve. I like having the Kanban board on the right. In this case, it chose Opus High as the model of choice. It's waiting for the session to register. And from this point, these 2 sessions will use Claude Code's new agent-to-agent messaging capability to communicate. So the orchestrator is using a combination of that Claude Code capability with the CMUX CLI as governed by the CMUX workspace skill that tells it how to use the CLI. So in a moment, we'll see a prompt show up here, and then this session will begin working. And I will never touch this session. There it is. And you can see in the bottom of the prompt here, report back to me, send message to orchestrator. And that's leveraging the Claude Code messaging capability. And it's referencing the designation for this session, which is orchestrator. So the other thing that I like to do a lot is leverage the remote control capability. So I can continue to work while I'm on the go. So if I just set the orchestrator to be accessible via remote control, I don't have to worry about the other sessions that are working in the project or worry about looking at the Kanban board. I still have all of the control and influence that I need because the orchestrator is my main point of interaction. So that's also been just extremely handy. But anyhow, that's how I orchestrate my projects, both with code-based projects and with knowledge work. Again, this is CMUX. It's free, it's open source, and works pretty well out of the box. The orchestration skill, the Kanban board is also actually a skill. The CMUX workspace skill are all custom made based on my way of working. It's a process that I continue to refine. I don't think it'll ever stop being refined, but it's nice to have found a way of working or a model of working that fits the way that I think. Thanks for watching. And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. And if you're on a platform that supports subscriptions, a subscribe is definitely appreciated. Thanks for watching.